Let's start with events. And when I say events, I talk about open source conferences that could be about a particular open source project or about open source at large. All these events and conferences are super important and crucial for the sustainability and success of the open source ecosystem at large. But I have someone who is much better than me at describing the value of open source conferences and especially attending them in person or supporting your team and employees to go and attend them. And this person is Stephen Walli.
So in good technical developer events, so things like we see at FOSDEM scale, some of the more technical events that you see coming out of the Eclipse Foundation or the Linux Foundation, I think that's where people get confronted with the reality of this idea of build versus buy versus borrow and share, and how do you think about taking that dependency. And I think that's the thing. And I think they learn it at all levels. I mean, an engineer is being exposed to a new piece of technology at the same time that they start to realize that in the better talks, they're realizing, oh, this is how I engage with those developers that are publishing that software. I think their managers get to see that as well of, oh, this looks like a really useful tool for us to go use. But in seeing kind of the slightly chaotic environment around it of a room full of people asking, questions, the energy in the conversation, you start realizing, how do I manage this as the product manager, as the engineering manager? Like, how do I think about this engagement that I'm clearly seeing in front of me so I can start to think about it as a managed dependency in our product world? I think you only get that from showing up in the conferences to really start to understand that. I think some conferences do an outrageously good job. OpenStack Summit and Day Zero. I mean, that was shocking the first time I saw that when I went to work for Hewlett Packard. The idea that Day Zero is this, oh, you're new here. Let us show you how you can be successful for your needs. Same thing happens Day Zero in the IETF standards meetings, is the, oh, you're new here. Let us show you how to be successful. So I think that kind of, thoughtfulness in the organizers, that kind of exposure for managers and developers. For folks like me, it's a different experience. And when the three of us get together because of our backgrounds and because of our responsibilities within our current employers, that's that opportunity where we figure out what are the next things we need to be talking about, where we need to be thoughtful. How do we have the security conversation? How do we, and it's not necessarily that there wasn't a very good OpenSSF security day on the first day of the conference. It's the conversations that got provoked out of that, as Microsoft and Ericsson talk as good partners in the industry about what we might do with some of this information. I think the events work at all different levels. The hard thing, and again, it always comes back to culture. Hard thing there is, it turns out a lot of institutions consider conference travel to be a perk for an engineer. That's an old culture thing. And, the idea that, well, we can't send our engineers to these things because they're fun, that might have made some sense 10, 20, 30 years ago when conferences were different. But in the open source space, it's important, if you're going to figure out how you're going to manage that dependency, for your engineers to be in the room figuring out enough of what this dependency means.
Now that you know why you and your colleagues, your team members, and your friends should be attending open source conferences? What are the ones that are still upcoming that you should add to your calendar and travel plans? The next one is All Things Open. It is happening in the middle of October between the 13th and 15th. All Things Open is in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, next, we will be jumping to the exact opposite end of the planet or side of the planet, all the way to Australia, because that is where everything open will happen between January 21st and 23rd. Now, if you're scratching your head about this conference, I gotta share with you that this used to be LinuxConf Australia. They renamed and rebranded the event because they realized that it is much more than just talking about Linux by this point in time. So if you're in the region or if you were looking for an excuse to visit Australia, I think this is your perfect opportunity to go and do a little bit of open source and check out Australia while you're there. Now, if you're looking for a similar event, but somewhere else on the globe, then you can hop over to Brussels, Belgium on January 31st and February 1st, which is when FOSDEM will be happening next year in 2026. FOSDEM is also a volunteer organized, amazing, chaotic, crazy open source event. What you also need to know about FOSDEM is happening over the weekend. However, there are so many co-located events that are happening in Brussels that week, and some companies and teams are also organizing their team meetings and gatherings in the city, that this event really outgrew itself and provided an opportunity for the open source ecosystem to collaborate closer together. So just think about mingling between open source projects and also discussing anything around business around open source. Then, if you are already in the area, then you might as well hop over to the United Kingdom and attend State of the Open Con, which will be happening on February 3rd and 4th. We're still staying in Europe for FOSS Backstage, which I think is in Berlin, Germany, on March 16th and 17th. For this one, similar to FOSDEM, the CFP hasn't closed yet. So for FOSDEM, the call for papers usually happens sometime around October, November, December, depending on the dev rooms. For FOSS Backstage, the CFP or call for papers is currently open and will remain open until the 27th of October. So if you don't just want to attend, but you also have a topic that you would like to speak about, don't forget to submit your proposal. And there are many other events. I will sneak in some more project and ecosystem focused events. The first is Open Infra Summit Europe, which will be happening in Paris-Saclay in France on October 17th till the 19th. The CFP is unfortunately already closed, but if you have a use case or a project that is relying on a software infrastructure, this is your event to attend. If you're interested in the container space, then KubeCon North America is another event that you should check out between November 10th and the 13th. And the Europe occasion of KubeCon will be happening between March 23rd and 26th in 2026. The CFP for KubeCon North America is already closed for this year, but The one for KubeCon EU is still open and will remain open until the 12th of October. So again, if you have a topic area that you would like to present about, this is your time to submit your session proposal. I know that I mentioned a lot of events all around the globe, which kind of means that if you wanted, you could be on the road almost every week, every second week for a good chunk of the year. And I'm not saying that you have to do that. So, what I like to do is look into events that are closer to my area and region, which might be more accessible, and seek out some of those events that are highly relevant to what I do. And even if they are further away, I try to make an effort to go and attend them. So, again, a call to action to you. Look into the upcoming events and mark those that you're interested in. If they still have a call for papers open, consider submitting a talk. And I hope to see you at some of these upcoming amazing open source conferences.